Not sure how things exactly work in the US, but you don't need to overthrow democratic elections to overthrow democracy itself. What they do is they invade the whole bureaucracy with their people, purchase their loyalty, and the institutions, which are supposed to be grander than individuals, get corrupted, and the whole system collapses from within. Elections are still held, but they are absolutely unjust and unfair in terms of the playing field. And that's, again, something we've talked about a lot on this channel, how not only are they infiltrating the current administration with as many loyal to Trump. Okay, let's be clear. It's currently framed as if it's loyalty to Trump, but the reality is it's a movement. This is an ideology that the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and all of these evangelical Christian institutions and political organizations and all of these people in power are manufacturing, they're orchestrating, and Trump is nothing but a puppet for these institutions. He's the in-between their control and the people they're controlling. And so when I say loyal to Trump, it's really just they're loyal to this movement, this ideology of trying to build an authoritarian fascist regime on the far right here in the United States. So this quote of Marx, which, by the way, yes, I did just finish rereading the Communist Manifesto. Girl is about to take on the theory bros, okay? I'm so ready. The executive of the modern state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie. So yeah, these are all really good points. So you think they're actually into the whole ideology? I don't mean the everyday folk who vote Republican. I mean the bureaucrats. Are they in it for the cause or the money and political influence it brings? I'm mentally comparing the situations with Turkey. That's why I'm asking. Great question. No, I do not think that the people in power actually have an ideology, a system of virtues, a moral code that they are buying into and trying to propagate through their puppets like Donald Trump. I think that they are using culture wars. I think they are using the moral code of the everyday American, the everyday Republican more specifically, to garner more control and more power. And this is what I talk about with Christian nationalism a lot, because the everyday Christians are victims just as much as the rest of us. Now, are they a little bit more complicit in Christian nationalism growing in the White House and the evangelical leaders kind of becoming butt buddies with the political leaders in this country? And are the everyday Christians who voted those political leaders into power, are they a little bit more complicit than we are on the left? Yes, they are. And the difference between like Christian conservatives and, us on the left is that Christian conservatives have what they think, being the key phrase there, what they think are representatives of their beliefs, of their moral code, of their Christian values in the White House. They have people in power right now, whereas on the left, we don't even have the illusion of people in power that align with our values in the White House. But I don't think the Christian nationalists on the actual top of the pyramid, on the actual top of the hierarchy, give a fuck about Christianity. I think that they are, as you were saying, using the money, the influence, and the power to consolidate more and more money, influence, and power. And they are using Christian values. They are using the everyday Christian and conservative Republican to justify their control, their culture war, which is it's a manufactured culture war, when in reality this is a class war. And we have seen this time and time again through history. We have seen the ruling elite, the oligarchy of all of these different nations and all of these different empires that have risen and fallen. We have seen them try to consolidate more and more power by manufacturing a culture war and not letting the people on the bottom realize that it is a class war, that they are just trying to control the working class. So all of that to answer your question and say, no, I don't think the people in power actually give a fuck about Christian values here in the United States. And that's actually what we're going to talk about here in a little bit with Elon Musk, who has talked about not believing in a God in the past. He has talked about how he's openly said he's just a cultural Christian, which just means that he doesn't actually adhere to, Jesus and the quote unquote, the moral code that most Christians claim exists in the Bible, and even though we know it doesn't. But Elon Musk has basically openly said he's just culturally a Christian, which allows him to fool the Christians in this country. Like, it's very, very intentional here. And it's scary. It's scary. Do you harbor any bitterness towards those who indoctrinated you? I'm really struggling with this. I'm still angry with my family for all the years I wasted believing this nonsense. So I've kind of talked about this before, and that's a really good question that I'm glad you brought up. For the longest time after I deconstructed from evangelical fundamentalist Christianity, I was so angry. And there are plenty of valid reasons to be angry and hold on to anger at organized religion in general, because it is objectively so limiting. It is so harmful. So much violence has been committed in the name of religion. And it doesn't matter how many Christians come to me and say, well, I'm only Christian in like the name, and I'm very spiritual, and I'm LGBTQ positive, and I'm a progressive Christian. Like, calling yourself a Christian gives power to the institution of Christianity that, again, has brought so much violence upon the human race. So there are plenty of valid reasons to be angry at Christianity as an institution. Now, on a personal level, the anger that I had toward the people who indoctrinated me, the people who raised me, was a little bit misplaced looking back, because I, maybe like you, had felt like I had been lied to. I felt like I had been living in these lies and in this fairy tale, and that people had lied to me my whole life. But the reality is, the people who are still in those belief systems, the people who are still living under that paradigm and those like very limiting thought patterns, they don't think they're lying to you. They're not actively lying to us when they're telling us that wives should submit to their husband. I mean, at least the vast majority. I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to the exceptions in a second. But I very much do think that everyday Christians believe what they're saying. I mean, how could they not? Like, the way that they talk about it, the way they talk about spiritual warfare and all of their Christian values, like, they do believe what they're being preached to about, and they do believe what they think that they do believe their interpretation of the Bible, right? And so there is not active lying towards those of us who are raised and indoctrinated in the church. So that can be a really weird facet of holding anger against the way that we were raised, if we were raised in these high demand religions and denominations. Now, I said just a second ago that there are exceptions to those who are lying. And this does bring up something that I think is happening very overtly and obviously in the United States, which is that there are people in power right now who are using the manufactured culture war of Christian nationalism and promoting Christian values, while they do not actually deep down identify as Christian. They are actively using the Christian base to get more political votes, to get more justification for the genocide committed against the Palestinians, because evangelical Christians believe that, according to the book of Revelations, Jesus is going to come back, and there's going to be a rapture, and they're going to get to ascend into heaven altogether. I was telling someone who is not originally from this country about what evangelical Christians actually believe in regards to the book of Revelations and the prophecy of Armageddon and like the 7-year tribulation and the Left Behind series with Kirk Cameron. Like, this is serious lore that was taught at my high school. Okay, this is not just a story that I was hearing on the weekend at church for an hour every Sunday. I was being taught about the book of Revelation and Armageddon in high school, in middle school, okay? This is taught as if it were true throughout the country, throughout the United States. And I was telling this person who was not raised in the United States how deep this goes, and they were shocked. They'd never heard of the rapture. They'd never heard of the 7-year tribulation after Jesus comes back and raptures all of the true believers into heaven and who get glorified bodies, which I was told would be able to be invisible and fly and all of these different things, which are obviously mythical, fake, bullshit, right? But the people who were teaching me like directly in my high school, I 100% think they believed what they were preaching about the rapture and all of these things. And so the evangelical Christians who do buy into the book of Revelations, which is a lot, we can look up the statistics, but a large percentage of Christians believe in the rapture and that the book of Revelations is a truth, that the Armageddon is going to happen as the book of Revelations spells out, okay? And one of the things that they claim the book of Revelation spells out is that Israel needs to be a state, like an officially recognized nation. And that is why I think a lot of people in power who are decimating Gaza and committing genocide through the state of Israel by funding Israel through the United States government and by giving them military technology to enact the genocide, the way in which they are justifying, in large part, not exclusively, but in large part, is because of the book of Revelations. And that is how evangelical conservative Christians are buying into this idea that it is okay for the state of Israel to commit genocide against the Palestinians. It is okay for them to do whatever it takes for them to claim the land as their own. I grew up being told that it was absolutely 100% Israel was the land for Jewish people. Like, I was a Zionist 15 years ago. Do you feel me? Like, it goes so deep. People are being taught this in high school, etc. And I think that, yes, the people in power, the people who are claiming that Christian values are the only way for this country to truly thrive and be an appropriate country and all of these things, I think they are lying. I think they are actively lying and using the beliefs, the honest and true beliefs of everyday Christians who like may or may not have indoctrinated us because they were already indoctrinated, right? They are using the Christian congregations throughout the United States to consolidate money, power, and influence. And so I think that they are actively lying, to answer some of your question. Well, that wasn't really answering your question. So the question, do I harbor any bitterness toward those who indoctrinated me, is no. If anything, I look at them with pity because I used to be them, right? I say this all the time on my channel and on my videos. I do not hate everyday Christians. I pity them. It breaks my heart that there are people who are still living in the belief systems that I left. And it breaks my heart that the people who raised me, who indoctrinated me, might never break out from those thought patterns that are holding them back, and that they're just being lied to by these media outlets that are paid for, as this video is talking about, by the ultra-rich elites who I don't think they're Christian. I don't. Maybe a handful of them, but I think the people in power are using Christianity to consolidate money, power, and greed. And so I do hold bitterness against them. I am actively fighting them, but I don't think everyday Christians who are just victims of the manipulation should be our main enemy and people who we should direct our anger at. I couldn't actually point to you who I think is actually believing and falling into the belief systems of Christianity. Who, like, I do think there are people in power who do actually believe this stuff, but I also, like, for example, think that some people in power, which we will talk about here right now, I think that some people in power are actively using Christianity for their own personal gain. And some of them are very open about it, and some of them I just don't know if we'll ever know if they actually believe in Christianity or if they're just using the culture of Christianity for their own power.
Culturally Christian. I grew up Christian. I mean, I was Anglican, was baptized, went to Sunday school. Maybe this will make me even more enemies, but I have trouble sort of believing all these stories, these religious stories, but obviously a lot of people do.
Do you believe there's a power higher than people?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot we don't know. We don't know, why does reality exist? Where did it come from? Where are the aliens? Culturally.
Which basically, he said that yes, there are higher power than human, but that does not, I believe in a higher power than human, and I'm an atheist. Like, I do think that there are other dimensional beings that exist within this universe. I'm not going to make the claim whether they're among us or not. Like, I don't think that's relevant, but what Musk is saying here is that he's culturally Christian, that he doesn't believe the religious stories, and he does not outright say that he believes in God. And yet, here he is being heralded as this savior figure on the religious right, because exactly what I've been talking about, he is using the culture of Christian values. The vast majority of the United States, 2/3 of the United States, identifies as Christian. And while there's a large population of Christians who are progressive or they're more left-leaning and all of these things, it's not the majority. That's why fascism is on the rise in the United States. That's why I'm actively fighting against Christian nationalism. It's not because I hate everyday Christians. I want them to be able to worship however the fuck they want. But when we have people in power who are taking advantage of these everyday Christians in order to further their own agendas, like, yes, I will fight against that. And that is what I think is very dangerous and concerning and bullshit. I'm currently reading Bart Ehrman's book about Revelation, and he mentions U.S. policy on Israel in his chapter on the real-life consequences of imminent apocalypses. That is a great sentence and totally spot on with what I'm talking about. My podcast episode in 2 Sundays from now is probably going to be about how evangelical Christianity is actively fueling a genocide. And that's like very, I'm sure, charged and polarized, because the genocide against Palestinians is one of the most censored topics that's actually actively being censored here in the United States, but it's also like one of the most important. It is the most important one because it is an active ethnic cleansing. Like, I just think that Christian nationalism, that's why I always say it is. The reason I always say that Christian nationalism is the biggest threat in the United States is because it is kind of the top dog of all of the 4 major hierarchical issues that are keeping the working class and everyday people exploited and disempowered and all of the terrible things, etc. White supremacy, patriarchy, organized religion, and capitalism all come together in Christian nationalism and the prosperity gospel and the belief that this is a Christian nation and that this, the Abrahamic gods or the Abrahamic religions are all patriarchal in nature. Like, it's so insidious. It's so sinister. And I know there's a lot of people talking about Christian nationalism and all of the things that I just laid out, but I can't separate all of those issues. They are all the same to me. And it's really fucking terrifying and it's really fucking serious. Also, Musk sucks. He sucks so bad, you guys.